It's going live.
Oh, we are going live. Hello, Facebook LCA. How are you? Thank you for joining us for another Lady Leaders. Today is a little bit different of a topic. We've got a lot of different things that are going on in this world today that's had a huge adjustment on us. But we had this topic planned for a while, Ann and I did, and it's almost just so fitting with what's happened. I know recently in my life what's happened. But today we're going to be discussing life after loss. So that's what we're talking about today. A little bit of a sensitive subject, but we're so excited to have our co-hosts with us today. As you all know, I'm Cheri Benjamin, and we've got my lovely Ann Baldwin. And today we've got on Aimee Freeman and Nicole Gary.
Hey.
Thank you, ladies, so much for being so willing to discuss something like this. We really appreciate you guys being on here. Aimee, can we start off with your story?
Sure. So I have two living children. My youngest turns 19 today. So I know. So the pictures that I posted of him on Facebook are old because he doesn't allow photos.
Yeah,
anymore.
He's got that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So it's his last year as a teenager. And then my daughter turns 21 next week.
Her twin. Yeah.
My twin, yes. And then I also had another child, Kaylee, who was born very premature in 2008. And we basically lived in the NICU for almost a year. Lots of surgeries. She was born 1 pound, 1 ounce. She was never supposed to be born alive. Many surgeries, open heart at 3 pounds, times where we thought she'd be coming home, B open heart surgery like a champ, UTI almost killed her. You know, it was just very, very roller coaster. In December of that year, we actually had family come and say goodbye because basically what was said to us was we've used all of our tools in our toolbox. And I wore a cross necklace and I'm just sitting in there and I'm rubbing it and I'm praying and her numbers are getting better. And I think I was even irritating my husband at the time because everyone came to say goodbye, you know, and I'm like, no, numbers don't get better if you're going to die. That doesn't happen. Right. And then she did get better and she lived until May. She passed the day after Mother's Day. So unfortunately, I always associate the two. I've tried to get better about it, but for a couple of years, I just really didn't want to celebrate Mother's Day. And then I felt like, well, that's not really fair to Brandon and Allison. So, but we knew that was going to happen. It was a situation where she had gone brain dead and we had to make the decision. And they tell you, because when it first happened, we knew we would have to make the decision unless something happened that wasn't expected. And I kept asking, you know, how do you say, I've had enough time, we could turn off the machines and go home now? So again, we had everybody come in and everybody said their goodbyes. We staggered family. And then when it was time, one of our doctors in there that spent the most time with her, one of the nurses that spent the most time with her. And we really thought that we were going to pull everything and she'd pass immediately because she had this one medication where it was always so sensitive. If you were changing her diaper, it was like, oh my God, if she doesn't get this medicine for 10 seconds, she could die. So we thought, okay, we're going to unplug everything and it'll be time. 2 hours. She was alive for 2 hours. And it's funny when I tell the story, you never know like where it's going to go, right? You know, I'm holding her, and there was just a moment where it was like, okay, she's not here anymore. And we had a photographer come and do pictures, and I realized that it wasn't until she passed, or for that 2 hours, I had never held her without her being hooked up to something.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, so her birthday is June 23rd. She passed on May 11th. So this year would be 11 years that she passed. She'd be 12. So.
Whew.
Yeah, and crazy me watched The Shack again last night. That wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, don't do that to yourself.
I know that Aimee and I worked very closely with each other for 4 or 5 years now. Even though we're in different states, you know, we've been in coaching programs together. We've, you know, been on trips together type of thing. So I know of your story. I don't think we've ever really gone that much. You know, we've only talked about little bits and pieces, Kaylee, here and there. I think this part of asking questions, when you, and this is a little bit personal to me, so this is why I'm asking you this question. My birthday is on Sunday, and my son his birthday is on Saturday. And so I knew that his delivery date was supposed to be April the 20th. April the 20th is the day that my cousin passed away, but I always carried around a burden, feeling as if it was my fault. I was 13. It was the day after my birthday. So I was 13. It was Easter Monday. And him and I don't know what we were arguing about, something, because he was 14, I was 13, whatever. It was something stupid. But his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and he just fell backwards. And I thought he was joking because he was a big time jokester. So I thought he was joking, and I was like, get up, stop playing. Walked away, came back, realized when I saw like that look in his eyes, oh my goodness, no, he's not here anymore. And then I performed CPR. So I always carried it around. I mean, and it's taken such a long time for me that I've always carried around that April the 20th is like, ugh, to me. So I've made them deliver Mario, not on my birthday, not on the 20th, the day before. Like, I got induced that day because I could not have him on the date that he was supposed to come out. I just couldn't do that. Were you able to, because even to this day, like, I'm not a big birthday celebrator of my own because of what's happened way back when I was 13, you know? So you mentioned that she passed away the day after Monday. He passed away the day after my birthday. I don't really celebrate it. Like, it's okay. It's cool. You can give me a cake, and I'm 41 and I'm still like, How are you able to, was it because of the kids? What do you think that's what it was, to get that past it in your mind for such what's supposed to be a special day, you know, for you, Mother's Day, it's supposed to be a special day, my birthday, but I still cannot mentally and I'm getting all emotional right now. I still can't mentally get past it in my head.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think holidays, celebrations, birthdays, whatever, they are for us, but they're also for the people around us. You know, I really hate when there's someone in my life, I hate to hear this because you and I are close. Selfishly, I want to celebrate your birthday, partner's birthday, I don't want to not be able to do anything for you, you know? And I don't think Kaylee wouldn't want me to be sad about that, you know? And I was just sad. I mean, and it takes a couple years, you know? But I didn't care to do anything. And I was robbing them of that too, you know? So, and fortunately, Mother's Day's on a different day every year. So it's not always the day after. Sometimes it might be the day of, but it does jump around a little bit. So no, I think, I had to think about the kids, and then I had to think she wouldn't want me to be sad about that. I celebrate her birthday. I, you know, I pay attention to the day that she passed. I mean, those 2 days, I think about her all the time, but those 2 days, she is on my mind all day long, and I don't want to let that go. It doesn't have to be a sad thing anymore, Sometimes I do get caught up. I'll sit down and start looking at pictures, and I'm like, maybe not today, maybe not.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, and Linda Wells says her son passed away just before Christmas, and since then she hasn't been able to put up a tree. And I still understand what that pain feels like. I mean, for me, it's almost been 30 years when you think about it. In a couple more years. So Easter is never, because it was Easter Monday, so it's never I still can't mentally get past it. Nicole. So Nicole, you are an agent in Manhattan. And can you tell us your story?
Yes, absolutely. So I went into real estate probably around a little over 8 years ago. And about 2 years later, met the love of my life, my late husband. And we had great life together. And as one of my good friends calls it, fast and furious love. And we moved in together, and we didn't get married until almost 2.5 years later. Long story short, he proposed the day after my 35th birthday. I woke up at 6 a.m. and he said, "Will you marry me?" I said, "Why are you up so early?" And he's like, "I don't know what we're waiting for. I love you. My kids love you. My parents love you. Let's get married on Friday." I said, "Well, I'm booked. How about next Friday?" So we got married November 4th. And around the next year, in September, it was Rosh Hashanah. I'm Jewish, he wasn't, so we celebrated every holiday. And my family was coming over, his family was coming over, and we had just gone through a pretty tough summer. He had a lot of surgeries. He had diverticulitis and part of his colon and intestine cut out, a temporary collapsic bag, and he finally had this last surgery. And it was like, we joked around, he was Humpty Dumpty getting put back together again, and he was trying to go back to work, hadn't worked in a while. Long story short, he hadn't come home. I was wondering, I knew something was wrong, because he would never not be home by the time his kids got home from school. So I came home and I just put chicken in the oven, thinking all right, he's gonna come home. Couldn't get a hold of him, got a call from the hospital. And they said, "Do you know Chris?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm his wife." And they said, "Well, you need to come here." And I said, "Well, what's wrong?" They said, "Well, we can't tell you." And I said, "Is he alive?" And they said, "We're working on it." So literally my heart stopped. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know what to do. My 16-year-old cousin had just got to our apartment. I had my youngest stepson there who just got home from school. And I said, "I need to go. Dad's in the hospital." I said to my cousin, stay with him. Got to the hospital and found out that he tried to commit suicide. So I was shocked in a lot of ways, obviously. And the next 48 hours were like a whirlwind. It was pretty frightening, pretty scary. In my mind, I thought okay, he's going to be fine. But he was in the ER with 16 doctors around him. And they were trying to start his heart for the second time. And he was in ICU, and they did all these surgeries. They couldn't figure out he was internally bleeding. And to make a long story short, about 48 hours later, they said he was completely brain dead and wasn't going to be waking up. So it was a really hard time. And the week after, we were supposed to move. So I also found out that basically we had no money left, and there was a lot going on, and a lot that I didn't really know, and a lot that I just had to get through. So somehow I had to pack up my entire life, our whole apartment, before I actually buried him, because we were moving and he was on life support, even though he was technically declared dead, because he was an organ donor. So they had him on all these machines so that they can get his organs back and save some lives, which he did, thankfully. So it was a really, really hard time. You're sitting there and you're with this person you love. You haven't even been married a year. We were trying to have a baby. There was just so much there, and you kind of have this false hope thinking that he's going to come back alive, but you know that he's not. So definitely a really tough one. It's been about, March 22nd was 2.5 years. And I try to celebrate all the good times. And I look at it like I'm really grateful and really blessed to have found the love that we had. Somebody who had worked for me came up to me at the funeral and said to me, Nicole, I'm so sorry. She goes, I know how much you guys loved each other, and I will never have that type of love with my husband. And I felt really bad for her, but really grateful to have experienced the love that we had, although it was cut too short. At the same time, I was running a thriving business. I had an 8-person team. My director of operations quit the day of my late husband's funeral, as if things couldn't get any worse. So I had no money, I had no place to live. Great, thankfully, a friend from Keller Williams who was amazing literally moved out of her apartment and gave me her apartment when I came back from the funeral, which was the nicest thing anyone could ever do. And I just somehow had to keep going. Like, there was no way that I could just stop. There was like life insurance was a mess. There was nothing. I just had to keep going, and I had to somehow wake up every day, keep going to work. And even if it was like baby steps, even if I got to my office at 11 or 12, I still got there. Thankfully, I have an amazing family. My mom was there for me, stayed with me for weeks. I slept on the couch in my friend's apartment. My dad, my brother, and people in my office were just absolutely amazing. Like, helped me pack up my apartment, kind of like a whirlwind. And I don't know how I got through those first few months. I had this amazing intern who at the time stepped up and said, can I apply for your director of ops position? And I was like, wait, I don't even know your name. And turns out he was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. He was with me for 6 months. He stayed in the office with me till like 10 o'clock, midnight, and just helped me get through that and helped me get to the place where I was finally closing deals again and building back up. So every day is a struggle and a battle. And this is really the first time that I'm putting it out there and sharing the fact that he committed suicide. And it's something that, you know, I think we really need to look at in regards to mental health and whatnot. And as his wife, as the person who loved him so much, it's crazy to like think about that I didn't even realize that he would do something like this. And I feel like it was just something that happened in a split second. It was like, he didn't mean to do it. He loved his children. He loved me. I know that. And I just try to keep going every day and put one foot in front of the other and celebrate all the good times. I do celebrate his birthday, I celebrate our anniversary, the anniversary of his death. And I sometimes think about, like, you know, how long am I going to do this, like every 6 months kind of thing for? But I just keep going. And that year I somehow went from like top team to top 3rd team. And I was like really proud of that achievement, because I said to myself, you know what, like, that's pretty good considering everything that I've gone through and how I started from scratch. And that's, you know, it in a nutshell, to say the least. But I kept doing the things that I like to do. I love to work out, and that was always a really good thing for me. So a good friend of mine who had lost her husband several years prior to me was so sweet, and she literally put like 10 SoulCycle classes in my account, and another friend from SoulCycle got me to go. She kept calling me every day saying, like, you're coming, I'm getting you to class. So I think about a month or so later, I did that. And kind of on that journey, I was 35 when it happened, and that happened in September. And in February, I decided I was going to freeze my eggs because I wanted to have a child. And I figured, I'm going to do this now. And I remember my dad saying to me, are you crazy? He goes, you have no money. Like, what are you doing? You need to not be spending money on this right now. And I said, you know what, Dad? I can make more money, but I can't buy time. So I did that. And I, you know, try to do whatever I can to share the story and try to help other people and prevent it from happening. And it's okay. Like, people deal with this every day. And I've thankfully always been a really strong person, and I just somehow persevere through it. And I just threw myself into work. I mean, that's all I did for like the last 2 years. I just work. And I decided that I was going to create more experiences in my life. I remember the day that I was moving out of that apartment and the elevator opened into our loft, and I saw my late husband had like 80 custom suits, and they're all getting walked into the elevator, donated, because I didn't know what to do with anything. My dad said, we have to donate it. So I remember thinking to myself, you know what, like, I would give up all of this material stuff in 2 seconds to have him back, to have that love back. And life is really about experiences and surrounding yourself with the people you love. So.
Yeah. Before we started, we said that nothing was off topic, but Aimee, you can let me know if you don't want me to discuss this when it comes down to suicide, because I know that it's still very fresh.
Yeah, I just noticed the date. I think it's 7 months today.
Is it 7 months
Maybe
today?
it's the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 7 months today?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So all three of us,
Mhm.
and myself and Aimee, we were in,
You were here in Michigan.
yeah, I was gonna say we were in like the Detroit area. I can't remember exactly where we were at, but the three of us were basically all together, and we lost a friend of ours to suicide the night before we were basically like going. I just can't get my head around this. It's like it just dawned on me that when you just said that it's like to the date.
Yeah.
But suicide is extremely hard. And it makes you feel as if, oh boy, makes you feel as if you should have done more. Like, what more could I have done? Could I have said more? Could I have done more? Could I have helped more? Could I? What more could I have done? And so thank you for sharing that, because this was a friend of ours, and Aimee was a little bit closer. I mean, I talked to him like for almost a year, every other day, or texted every other day, and I've known him for a little shorter period of a time than what Aimee has. But it's very hard. And Nicole, I'm just thinking of your story and thinking of that fight in that that he's there, he's fighting, you're fighting, everybody is championing behind him. And then just the thought of, why did you do this? And what could we have done? And it is really, I couldn't imagine losing my husband. I couldn't imagine losing my kids. It's such a, those are some of the people who are like the closest to you. Our parents are close to us, our siblings are close to us, but our husband, our children live under the same roof, that we do. It's the person who we wake up to every day. And the fact that you were able to just put one foot in front of the other, every day. And just like you said, even if it was a small baby step, even if it was just, I didn't make it, I made it at 11, I got there and it was 11 o'clock, you still got there, you still got there. It just, to me, it shows so much strength on your part, to be able to do this, especially for your kids, for your stepkids, for everyone who is watching you, and those other people who are watching you. So I'm very grateful that you are so willing to be so vulnerable and tell that part of your story, because just like you didn't know that there was three of us on this call who've experienced this just a few months ago, less than a year. Have you done something to, what's the word I'm looking for? I know, Aimee, you have a beautiful butterfly tattoo that's there. Yes. That's there for her. Have you done anything for him similar, or?
No, it's so funny that you say that about the butterfly, because I remember going out to Montauk for the funeral, and I was in like shock, and that was like our special place, and I knew that he should be out there, and I kept seeing butterflies. And I remember I went to the beach. He had taught my brother to surf, so we went to the surf beach, and my brother surfed, and I'm just kind of in shock sitting there on the beach, and I kept seeing this like beautiful butterfly fly back and forth, but it wouldn't let me take a picture of it. It was really weird. And then my brother was out surfing for probably 2 hours, and he came back and he's like, Nicole, I kept seeing this butterfly. And he's like, I feel like it was Chris. And then I like went back to the hotel I was staying at, and I saw this butterfly, and I saw it like several times. And my brother was giving the eulogy at the Montauk Lighthouse, and my brother starts telling that story, and all of a sudden the butterfly just flew in front of him. It was really incredible. And the weird thing is I had got this butterfly necklace right before he passed away, and it like disappeared for several months after. I mean, I had things all over the place and was moving, and I haven't done anything like that, but every time I see a butterfly, I think about him, and I feel like it's his presence. And I live in Manhattan. I never once saw a butterfly in my entire life. One day I was walking endlessly trying to figure out, where am I going to live? Like, where am I going to go? What neighborhood should I be in? And I remember walking from like uptown to downtown, and I was somewhere in the West Village, and I saw this butterfly. And I felt like it was a sign that was said to me, like, you need to be downtown. And I had made many mistakes. I moved 4 times, like, before I finally found my home again. And I have these, I have books and I have pictures that I've made in the past. And I had all these boards that I made for his wake. And for weeks and months, actually, right after, I used to just look at them and cry and say, like, sit there at night, like, why did you do this? Like, why did you leave? And I haven't done anything significant like that, but there's, I have some thoughts, and I think it's also very soon. It's 2.5 years. And I just, there's certain things that I see or feel, and I feel like that's his presence. And there's times where I feel like, if you were to talk to me about like, mediums or psychics or any of this before he passed away, I would have said, you're totally crazy. I don't believe in any of that. And I spoke to like 2 mediums after, and I couldn't believe the things that they were telling me. It was like nobody would know this without him, like, speaking to them. And it was really incredible. And there were certain days, like a few days ago, actually, I was just thinking about him, and I just kind of thought, like, send me a sign or something. And literally a couple minutes later, a friend of ours had texted me about like something funny between Passover, and then I talked to my mom, and she brought him up, and it was like all about the same story. So I really do believe that he is like there looking over me somehow. And maybe he, I really don't think he meant to do what he did. And I used to think, was there a way for me to stop him, or was there a way for me, what could I have done to help? And I've gotten to the point where I feel like there's really nothing I could have done. And he knew how much I loved him. He told me, like, we had no money left a few weeks before. I said, you know what? So what? I said, we have our love. He was in the hospital, and I said, you need to get healthy, and that's all that matters. I said, we'll move, we'll downsize our life. I said, we have our love, and we can make more money. And that's, that's more than most people can say. I said, you need your health back, and without your health, we have nothing. But other than that, we can build everything else back. So,
Yeah. So, this isn't something I talk about. I don't know, I've never talked about it actually, other than like with my husband and obviously my family. But, from that point of view of what could you have done? I tried to commit suicide when I was a teenager. I was very depressed. I was bullied. And obviously I didn't succeed. But, I think something when if a friend or, someone who I have known recently died by suicide, I just remind myself that you're just in such a faraway place where that's your only way out of the pain. And that's your only way out of, stopping what you are feeling. At that point, you're really, at least in my instance, it was more of, I'm a burden, everyone else around me will be better off type of thing. And so honestly, by the time I think someone gets to that point, it's really hard to then, especially if they're not showing signs, because a lot of people don't, or, depression and is so different for everyone in how they show it. And it's not just, sitting in a dark room crying like a lot of people think. And I think, we all say, what could we have done? What could we have done? And honestly, like at that point, it's more about the person choosing to not even choosing, because you're not choosing, it's your way out. And so I think, when I tell myself that, I had a friend whose brother died by suicide recently, and when you see all these celebrities in the past few years dying, it's, for me at least, I remind myself, this was their way of escaping that pain they were feeling. And so, that sometimes helps me when I think about it. But then segueing, I guess, into grief is so different, for everybody, and everyone shows grief in a different way. And I know, Nicole, you said you worked out a lot, you threw yourself into work. Aimee, how did you deal with the grief, being that it's a child? And I mean, I can't even imagine going through that with a child. And what were some things that you personally did, or maybe the people around you, to help you through that grief?
Well, to compound my grief, my husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore a week after her memorial. So, and Nicole, we have so many things in common, like just moved. So I'm in a new house. So my kids, let's see, that'd be 11 years ago. So they were 7 and 9. And thank goodness for the move, because our back fence was shared with the house behind us, and there were 2 girls the age of my kids. And if it wasn't for those kids spending time with my kids and lean cuisines, I don't know that we would have survived the summer, quite honestly. I did a lot of laying on the couch. You know, I didn't lean on drugs, or I'm not a big drinker. I'm a big drinker during the quarantine right now.
Yeah.
I am not a big drinker. No pills, nothing. I mean, I finally did have to call my doctor and just say, you know, can I get something? You know, my child just passed away. My husband left. Like, it's a lot. And they were like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody didn't offer you something. And I'm like, I don't want to not feel. I just want to be able to get off the couch. Lots of self-help. You know, I think, maybe I'm realizing this as I'm saying it. Maybe my husband leaving helped in a way, because I was so focused on trying to fix that. You know, it gave me something. But you know, people say all the time, I don't know how you did it. Well, what was the alternative?
Exactly.
Lay down and die? Like, you just have to do it. And I could sit and listen to Nicole and think, oh my God, I don't know how you did it. It's every relationship, everything is different. And not to minimize mine, I had 11 months with Kaylee that I was never supposed to have to begin with. She never spoke a word. She was never home, you know? So there are things, you had memories of your place together and the clothes and conversations and trips, you know? So I can't say better or worse, but if someone lost a child that was 10 and they had 10 years with that child, it's just different, you know? So people will say, oh my God, you're so strong. I just worked with the cards that were dealt to me. I haven't done anything special, you know, you just push through. I did want to tell you guys a butterfly story. I might start crying, but it ties in Kaylee and Aaron. And I don't know, Cheri, if I told you this story.
Yeah, I know this story. I know this story. I know how this is so recent with Aaron, you know, but thank you for
well, this took 10 years because I don't have any other tattoos. So it was, what does it look like? Where does it go? What color is it? What shape is it? You know, and then my daughter was getting one because she was of age now. And she's like, are you going or are you not going? So here it is. So when Aaron and I, our friend that committed suicide, when he and I were talking a lot, I had this butterfly that I thought was like trapped in my screen porch. And it stayed there for a couple days. And I took pictures of it and I sent him the pictures on Facebook. And I was like, I think it's Kaylee. And she was there for several days. And when he passed, I was out of town. And I came back in town. I was on the phone with my friend Dawn. I had to immediately let out my dogs as soon as I got home. And I let out the dogs and I look up and I was like, oh my God, butterfly in there. And this is the first time I'm home after I find out that he passes away. And like, I'm sure that it's him, right? And I take a picture of it and then I go back on Facebook and I pull the photos that I had sent him before. And it just, like, they're so similar, right? I don't know how many differences there are in butterflies, but Also have been to a medium since, and she told me that was Aaron coming to visit me. So, and again, things like, I get it. If I told some of these stories before I went, I'd be like, oh my God, that's so hokey. They say that general stuff to everybody. But she knew some things. He comes to visit me. He helps me in my business because I mentioned that I'm mad at him at times, you know, because he did what he did. And there are decisions that I would have consulted him on. And I was like, you know, I get really mad at him because I can't do that. I'll think, oh, this is something that I should ask Aaron about. And then I'm like, can't. And she's like, well, don't be mad at him because he's helping you. And she said, you know, she said some other things. Kaylee comes to visit and she could describe that and how our house is laid out, and mentioned, you know, she stays up high because she's afraid of the dogs because they bark. I had not told her I had dogs. Sure, could it have been a good guess? Sure. But I went into that with, if she tells me one of these two things, I will believe everything she said. Yeah. And she told me both.
Yeah. I remember you getting ready for.
Wow.
Yeah. Boy. This is a tough one today. And
yeah.
I decided to talk about this today, Anne.
You know what, though? I don't know about you guys, but Cheri, I think some of the reason why, even as much as we know each other, we haven't talked about this so much is because people are uncomfortable talking about death. So I had my daughter for 11 months. I have the same pictures, you know, almost 12 years later. For her birthday, for the anniversary of her death, I have to post the same photos. I just don't have a lot. In the beginning, and it depends on who I'm talking to now, but someone will say, how many kids do you have? Well, if I say anything other than 2, if I say, oh, I have 2 living and 1 in heaven or whatever, people do not want to hear the rest. If you just say 2, they're like, oh my God, how old are they? What are they doing? If you say anything about death, we don't want to know anymore.
It's so true.
I think it's because most people have some sort of something to where they've experienced that type of loss, maybe not to a child or my spouse, but they remember experiencing some sort of a loss that it's such a hard, dark place that they don't want to intrude or take you there, or even for themselves. Like, it makes them uncomfortable because the instant we start talking about Kaylee, and I knew we were going to talk about Kaylee and we were going to talk about Chris, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh, this weapon. Ask Ann. I remember like on this 30 minutes earlier, and today it was a little rough, like getting myself mentally ready, just because I knew that as strong as everyone thinks that I am, like, I'm such a wuss. Yeah. I am. And it's more than just this, but death is hard and death is so final. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people.
Well, and I think that, you know, and we've talked about this on other webinars, I think the way some people are brought up also, like, emotions aren't talked about, things are brushed under the rug, and about mental health being talked about. And, you know, so I think you're right. A lot of things, it's not about you, it's about the person who's talking to you, and they're being uncomfortable and they're not knowing what to. I know also I've been in positions before where, you know, I don't know the person that well. So like, if it were one of my friends, I might know, you know, what to say, or if this happened to them, how they would need to be best supported. But I think a lot of people, you know, and myself included, I've been in that, you don't know if that person wants about it, if they're ready to talk about it. If it's something, you know, that they're willing to share, or what to even say. And so I was going to ask this question, and Cheryl Johnson asked, you know, what is one thing that people did or said that was helpful for you in the grieving process, or even now, like something, you know, in your opinion, what other people can do for someone when they're going through this, especially because right now with everything going on, we are seeing a lot of death, and, you know, people are going to need support.
So I actually had a wonderful woman in my life, the same friend who actually sent me or gave me those Soul Cycle classes, who checked in on me every day. And she was a single mother with 2 little boys. And every day she called or texted me and said, "How are you today?" And that was huge for me. And that was so special. And that's something that I've used with other people and who have gone through the same types of things. I've checked in on them and said, "How are you today?" Because every day is a different day when you're dealing with grief. And there are days that you're happy. There's days that you're sad. There's days that you're upset. And like Aimee, you were saying, you got mad, and and everyone deals with grief differently. And people say, "You're so strong, you're so strong, you're so strong." But deep inside, I don't feel that strong all the time. You're dealing with so much. It's just kind of a perception of what people see from the outside. And I've actually never got mad, weirdly enough. I know that's one of the phases of grief, and I think everyone grieves differently. But I just felt sad almost that I couldn't help. But I've also realized that there's nothing I could have done to help. So things that people did were just kind of encouraging, and they talk about memories and talk about, our love and how much he loved me and the life that we had together. And I think just talking about those memories was actually really helpful for me personally. And I never wanted to stop looking at them. And like Aimee, you said, you have the same pictures. It's funny. We were together just under 3 years, and it was the most amazing 3 years of my life. And thankfully we took a ton of pictures. But I do think about that. I was just looking at okay, what picture do I post for the 2.5-year anniversary? And you're looking at the same pictures over and over, but we're grateful. I'm just feel so grateful that we do have those. So
That's a powerful thing. And I think that "how are you today?" It seems like it's so simple, but Anne recently just did that to me. I'm an emotional wreck today. Gosh, why are we talking?
I know. I always annoy you, and I'm like, even though I know you might not text me back and you might not want to talk about it, I still, we talk about everything.
I have an aunt and a cousin that we just buried via video this past Sunday, and they passed away a day after each other due to COVID-19. And I have not talked about it on Facebook, besides if I knew that someone else was experiencing it, because I couldn't take these conspiracy theories and people who are saying this and all of these different things. Everyone is entitled to their opinions, but it was a little bit too much, because it's extremely real what's going on to me. And so Anne did know, and she knew because I think we were on the phone or we were texting or something, and I'm just and it was right there on my mind. But every day, just about every day, she's asked me "How are you today?" Even though she's extremely sick in her home from the same thing, or we're assuming it's the same thing, and her son is the same thing that just took my aunt and my cousin a day after each other. She's still there. So thank you so much, my friend.
You're welcome.
I really
of course.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Ask a different question.
No, and I think, one of my best friend, I've known her since I was 2. Same thing. She handles grief differently, but same thing. When her mother passed lung cancer, and her dad also has lung cancer. And I knew it wasn't annoying her, but at the same time, even if someone isn't texting you back or calling you back, at least in my mind, I feel they know that someone is in their corner. And, it's when they're ready to talk, when that person, maybe is having a moment, I know with you, Cheri, I know you might not want to talk, or you might be mad, but you'll reach out when you do want to talk, and that the person is there. Because I think that is a tough part. When someone passes, or someone in their life does, not knowing what to do for them, because you do feel kind of helpless in that situation. And it's not about you, but and I think as humans, most people want to fix things and want to help and want to fix someone who's hurting. But then I'm sure there's a lot of things that people do. There are a lot of things that people do that they shouldn't do when someone loses a loved one, which, is a whole other thing.
Well, and I was going to say that too, you know, I'm a believer. I believe that Kaylee's in heaven. I believe I'll see her again. But you know, the day after she passes or a week after she passes, when people say, oh, but she's in a better place. Don't want to hear it. Know it. Don't want to hear it. Want to hear. So I wouldn't say that to the person that asked. I do feel like, and I think all of us are, you know, strong, or everyone's definition of strong, whatever. You could reach out to me and ask me what I need, and I'm going to tell you nothing. My kids are eating lean cuisines for the 30th day in a row. I can't get off the couch. I'm going to counseling at 1 o'clock on Thursdays, and that's the only time I'm leaving the house, and we were not in quarantine. Just bring me a meal, or like, if you really want to help, just do something for the person, because you're going to keep asking what they need and they're going to say nothing.
Right.
So just do something for them.
Yeah. I want to just do a little bit of a shift, because I know, Aimee, you've been in this business for 20 years. Nicole, you've basically said, I put one foot in front of the other and got my booty into that office and started it. And your career has started, you know, to come, your career came back to life and you moved up the charts. Aimee, same thing with you, badass. So it's been longer for you. When was the shift for you? Was it because of medication that the shift happened? But when was the shift for you? Because, you know, we are in a real estate group broadcasting this. There are tons of agents. I know some that Ann and I went back and forth over who can we ask to have on here. And there were some who are just very recently had a loss. That was either child, spouse, something of that nature, someone like that. And we didn't want to, it just felt too new. So for them, not necessarily how were you able to do it, but when did it start to turn for you to where you could, like Nicole said, get your butt off the couch and start moving? And were you doing it can you just talk about, because there's so many things that are going on in my brain as to just me trying to decide, like, if I was in that position, but I wasn't. And I'm just being very honest. I don't want to be, like, ever in the position that the two of you were in, but you both were agents during this time.
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned, you know, she passed, husband left. It was 2009, 8, market crashed also. So I didn't have enough going on.
Oh, in a recession.
Yeah, it was a lot of things all at once. But you know, she passed in May. Memorial was after, he left after. I moved the weekend of my birthday to Wilmington because my husband was like, hey, let's give this a try again. So then I also added leaving my business, moving to a new city, only to a couple months later for him to leave again. So I feel like the medication helped. I only stayed on it, I don't know, 10 milligrams of something. I don't even remember what it was. But I was feeling off even taking that. Like, I could get up and I could move and I could do the things that I had to do, but I still didn't feel right. So I don't know. I would say for me, it was just a couple months because there was always some new thing being thrown my way. And I just had to keep going. You know, I couldn't just lay down. I would have had no job, nothing. I mean, he left again that February. I was waitressing, you know, I mean, my real estate career had to go back on the back burner. I was working a job making $15 an hour, and I would come home, I would let out the dogs, I would change, and then I would go be a waitress until midnight. So the unfortunate thing is I don't do victim personalities well. You just want to call and complain about your life. I'm not the person to call.
Exactly.
That being said, if, you know, you guys know more women and men going through stuff. I mean, if there's anybody that ever wants to talk to me that's lost a child, I'm happy to do that. So.
Yeah. Before we get into I just want to make sure that I definitely say this for any of you all who's considered suicide, who know of someone who has. I want to just mention the National Suicide Hotline phone number, and that is 1-800-273-8255. So please use it. There's people that are there that are there to help you. If you are at that point, or if you feel as if someone that you care about is.
And on that note, we did post that in Facebook along with the domestic abuse hotline and ways that you can text if you are in a position where you can't call, as well as some resources for telehealth psychological services, which a lot are being covered by your insurance right now, since this is a tough time for a lot of people.
Yeah. Something I'd love to add to that is that, I mean, suicide really hurts everyone else around you.
Mm-hmm.
The people that love you, you're hurting them more than anything. So if there is anybody out there who has that thought in their head, just know that you're just hurting so many people, and it's not the right choice. I'll say that. And just to add a little bit about, you know, kind of what I did also, like Aimee had mentioned about every day, was in my mind, there was no choice. People said, like, you could have laid there and you could have sat on the couch, but that wasn't a choice to me. In my mind, I had to get up. I had clients that were relying on me. I had a team that was relying on me. I had to help people. I had to sell their homes. I had to find them homes. And thankfully, I love what I do, and I'm so passionate about it. So that got me up and drove me every single day. And I had to make money. I needed to figure out how to pay my bills. I had to build my life back, really. And I thankfully did it in a really quick period of time. My market center was amazing and helped me with fees and whatnot. And just really, people were there for me. My TL had gotten a listing presentation for me like the week of the funeral. And I had an amazing team who really helped keep things going. I had a new agent on my team who called every single one of my sellers and let them know, like, we're there for them. And so I'm really grateful for that. And again, with like Aimee, I think we do have a ton in common. I don't deal with that victim mentality at all. It's, you know, you just keep going and you have to figure it out. And every day is a new day. And I was lucky enough to have amazing friends who every night somebody took me to dinner. I mean, I was barely eating at the time, but somebody would call me and say, like, let me take you to dinner. And that's how I got through my days. I remember my assistant at the time said, Nicole goes out more than I do. And it wasn't about going out. It was more just like, I needed somebody to talk to and like go to dinner. And I was holding in this story too, which was really tough at the beginning. I wasn't really telling the truth about it. And that was a really hard part, but it's really, I feel good about getting it out there and finally talking to people about it. And if there's anybody out there as well who, you know, has these thoughts or has gone through this, I'm more than happy to talk to them and help them through it. I mean, everybody grieves differently, but you know, sometimes others will look at you and think you're strong and you feel like, oh my God, how am I going to get through the day? At the beginning, I would drink some wine and then I stopped drinking completely. They had me on depression medication and I realized I wasn't actually depressed. It was just like hard to function. And then it turned out that my doctor realized I have major ADD. So I'm on medication for that and that helps me function. I still don't feel like I function at the level that I did prior. I think it's a lot of PTSD. And it's hard for me to focus. I used to be really focused, like super organized, like get everything done. And it was really hard for me to get through my lists and my to-dos every day. And I felt like if I just got through at least some of them and checked some things off, that was better than doing nothing. So you could just try to do your best and as much as you physically or mentally possibly can.
Morning was always the hardest for me to first get out of bed because I had the whole day ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So like you said, it's just doing the one thing or having people texting you or calling you and checking in on you. I mean, taking a shower, like, so, you know.
Little things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's just being a genuine friend, you know, and it's just being a genuine friend. So for those who ask, you know, what do we do or how do you help someone? You do what you wish someone would do. You know, if that was you, you do what you wish someone would do. You do what you, when you say the word, I'm fine, and you know that there's no way in the world that person can be fine because of that, like Aimee said, bring them a meal. If it's your close girlfriend and she's walking around and you know your girlfriend, you know, we know our girlfriends. We know a lot of we're keepers of secrets, aren't we? So like Nicole said, you know, there's something that's going on, take them out. It doesn't have to be fancy dinner. It never has to be fancy dinner. It's the fact that they have company. It's the fact that sometimes you have another adult there that you can talk to, and you don't have to talk about the loss that's there. And you can have a moment of not thinking about it, and a brief moment that you can feel a little bit as if you were yourself again, just a little bit of it, you know? I think
if you know things that they like, you just go get them. 2 months ago, it was right when all of this stuff was starting to happen. One of my good friends, her ex-husband passed away. Her son is 18. So, you know, son's now, we just lost dad today. She likes her Starbucks. Like, I just went to the grocery store and bought, it was like $200 worth of bread, sandwich meat. So you don't have to leave the house for the next couple of days. You could just be there for your son. And then there's a new Starbucks drive-through right down the street. So I got a gift card. I got another gift card. So if they wanted to have food delivered, you know, just here's some stuff. You know,
but yeah, I was going to say, my sister went through something that I'm obviously not going to share, but it was, I'm coming over, I'm going to do your laundry for you, I'm going to sit with your kids, you know. And she fought me at first, and she fought my other sisters at first, but we're like, no, you know, we just showed up and we did it, because same thing. She would have said she was fine. Her husband, you know, was like, we're not fine. And so we, you know, I think even like you said, buying the things so they don't have to think about doing that, going over and just saying, no, you know what, you have a big pile of laundry, I'm going to do this for you so you don't have to worry about clean clothes. And I think that's something that any of us, if we're not sure, like even if, let's say it's a neighbor, someone maybe you don't know, I would think for me, any little thing would make me feel like someone's thinking about me and someone's in my corner. And I think that's something for anybody who's listening can remember and take from this.
Yeah. And we're right at our time. So thank you, ladies, so very much for being extremely vulnerable, for being willing to share your story, for making me cry. I so appreciate you for doing this, for showing your strength, for showing everyone how badass the two of you are. If they didn't know, then now they really do understand. I definitely 1000% from the bottom of my heart, I am there with you. We're all sisters, and this is what I believe. And I've always believed that. So if you ever need anything for anything, I know you won't reach out, but still do. Yeah. Okay. Let's just, so much, Cheri. Yes. Okay. And any of you out there in LCA world, and any of you lady leaders, Nicole, Aimee, and myself, we are there for you all. Reach out to us if you have any questions, if you just need to talk, if you just need to sit there. You know, my cousin and I, we just sat on the phone. We were basically on FaceTime, and we didn't say anything, and we sat there. So sometimes that's just what you need. So thank you so much for being extremely vulnerable. Thank you, Anne, for being such a good friend to me. And we love you guys. So tune in next 2 weeks. We'll be back. Did you have something, Anne?
No, I was going to say what the 2 weeks is from now.
What is the date? Quarantine feels.
Is it April? What month are we in?
April 2019.
It'll be April, yeah, it'll be April 29th. And that is parenting special needs, correct?
Yes, it is. It's
Parenting
for
special
those
needs.
of us who are parenting special needs children. So I am, Ann is, we have a couple of our friends that are joining that are. If you are a lady that is out there in our LCA world and this is something that is very close to you, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on to discuss it. This is not something that is easy. Very much like having a loss, it is extremely hard. And we're not afraid to go over these hard topics, okay? Because we're there for everybody. We're there for you. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Right.